And welcome back to the Michael Cohen Show on our continued journey to 500,000 subscribers. Thanks to you, 5,000 new subscribers in just a day. So do me a favor, let's keep growing this community. Let's keep growing it. Hit subscribe, watch, comment, and share, because the insanity, it's not stopping. Donald Trump, once again, trying to grab power that he doesn't have, this time by federalizing the DC police. We've all seen it. But this week alone, footage showed, get a load of this, the National Guard picking up trash in DC. I mean, let's just begin by saying it is disrespectful to send our troops who have decided to serve on behalf of the country to pick up trash in a park. DC Mayor Muriel Bowser, she said that while the presence of the National Guard is actually lowering crime, it isn't working because citizens are living in fear. On Mea Culpa, my friend Glenn Kirschner, a former federal prosecutor in DC, he joined me to explain why Trump's move is so dangerous. Glenn breaks down how Trump's power grab undermines local control, how it endangers officers, and worse, hands authority over to the very individual who pardoned the criminals who actually brutalized them on January 6th. Play the clip. You're a DC guy.
Yeah.
When the federal government moves to federalize DC police, what legal authority are they invoking? And could this be seen as, let's just say, a direct attempt to bypass Mayor Bowser's local control?
For anybody scoring at home, Michael, the law they are invoking is DC Code 1, Section 207.40, Emergency Control of Police. Does that law entitle Donald Trump to do what he did? No, it does not, but it doesn't matter. He did it anyway. But let me break down for the viewers and translate from legalese to English what the law provides. The law provides that if there are special emergency circumstances that require the federal government, the president, to take services from the local DC city cops, the Metropolitan Police Department, MPD, and use them for a federal purpose, then he can ask the mayor, and the mayor shall provide the resources, the law enforcement personnel that the president deems necessary, and that can only last 30 days. What the law doesn't say, Michael, and you can read this statute forward and backward, you're not going to find anything that says a president can seize control of the police department. That's not what it says. There is no special emergency. This is not taking law enforcement from the city for a, quote, federal purpose. You know what that would have looked like? On January 6th, there was a federal purpose to try to take local law enforcement and protect the lives of the people at the U.S. Capitol. There was also a reason on January 6th to activate the D.C. National Guard and direct them to protect the lives of the people at the Capitol. But Donald Trump did none of that. Instead, this is a dictatorial power grab that is not supported in the law. Donald Trump said, and I'm going to extend it beyond the 30 days that's in this statute. Well, good luck with that sport, because you need a joint resolution to be passed into law. We'll see if that happens. But no, this is not lawful, but that's an academic question.
Well, he also believes that he's going to get the congressional approval for it. Somewhere, that the way they're speaking as if that they already know the numbers, that Mike Johnson already did the homework, and that they will, because of the majority that exists in the House of Representatives, that they will be successful in getting this thing passed. But I do want to ask you this, because historically, I want to give you just a historical analysis. You gave January 6th, but I certainly remember from my readings when federal forces overrode local law enforcement, like in the 1960s, the civil rights era. What lessons should we be drawing from those days for today's political climate?
Well, one of the lessons that I think we may have failed to learn is that we need to stand up en masse to an aspiring dictator and his corrupt regime. We have to do it peacefully. Civil disobedience, good trouble, as John Lewis said, is really all we have left. Because let's face it, no one person, no one prosecutor, no one judge, no one politician will save us. Listen, if the Democrats could have saved us from Donald Trump's insatiable appetite for to be a dictator, they would have saved us already. They can't. So, we are the ones who have to save us, and we have to do it by getting out in numbers that send the message. We're not going to let you destroy our democracy and rule over the ashes as a dictator. And let me add one thing that I neglected to say, because I just wrote a piece for The Contrarian. And one of the things that just is obscene, it's depraved, is that when Donald Trump unlawfully seized control of the Metropolitan Police Department, do you know he is now in charge of an agency that contains the victims of his January 6th crimes? Police officers who had the hell beat out of them on January 6th are still with the Metropolitan Police Department. Donald Trump is now in charge of their agency, in charge of them, and he pardoned the people who beat the hell out of the officers that he now is in charge of. That is depraved.
Well, I mean, everything that Trump does causes some form of chaos. It certainly creates, I don't know, the news cycle. He controls the entire news cycle. But I actually heard one person turning around and saying that the federalizing of the DC police during these politically sensitive events, like, these, I don't know, Trump events that they're having out there or investigations, could constitute an abuse of power, or even at some crazier level violate the Insurrection Act. Did you hear that same scenario?
I didn't hear the Insurrection Act piece. It's undoubtedly an abuse of power because he did it without lawful authority. But this man abuses his power every day. When he's not on the golf course, he's sitting in the Oval Office signing unlawful and unconstitutional executive orders, one after another after another. Executive orders that judges, including Ronald Reagan appointed judges, have said are blatantly unconstitutional. So abusing power is, basically the definition of the Trump presidency.
But then, sadly, while the lower court may rule, and it could be a Reagan judge appointee, they managed to, during the appellate process, overturn it. And if it's not overturned at the appellate process, they take it to the Supreme Court, where he has that group completely stacked in his favor. As far as I'm concerned, I know that this is the problem with us Democrats. We keep talking about how we're winning, how the courts are holding steady and tight, and that they are our last line of defense for the total abdication of the tripartite system of government. But none of that shit is true, by the way. If you take a look at the various cases, and yeah, there are some wins, but the real wins are really coming on behalf of this administration. And we're all scratching our head and we're saying, how? I mean, a first-year law student, somebody that never went to law school, understands, if you've even read part of the Constitution, that these are unlawful acts, that this is an abuse of power.
Yeah, and Donald Trump has 6 radical right-wing Supreme Court justices who seem forever willing to let him expand and consolidate his power, notwithstanding the express language of the Constitution. And really, one of the most egregious Supreme Court rulings, which I hope someday goes the way of Dred Scott and Korematsu and Plessy versus Ferguson, is Trump versus the United States. I actually thought that caption on that case said it all. Trump versus the United States. Lincoln envisioned the government of the people, by the people, and for the people, and Donald Trump is trying to create a government against the people. Trump versus the United States. But look, Michael, the Supreme Court said that a president can commit all of the crimes he wants in violation of our federal laws, victimize the American people, and he has complete presidential immunity for core constitutional functions. And, you know, one of our preeminent constitutional law scholars, Yale professor Akil Reed Amar, said what the Supreme Court did in that opinion is they ruled that the Constitution is unconstitutional.
Wow.
Michael, where do we go with that? We don't get to appeal a bad ruling by the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that just wasn't a bad ruling. I mean, that was that. I mean, there's only one way to describe it. It's a dog shit ruling that actually guts all of our rights and guts the Constitution. Let me ask you this question, though. How do you think that these federalizing of the DC police, how do you think that this conflicts, these conflicts that are no doubt are going to take place will occur between local and federal authorities? How do you think that will ultimately play out?
Well, it's interesting. So because I was a prosecutor in DC for nearly a quarter of a century, I worked closely with the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. Those are the local city cops. And I worked closely with the FBI agents at the Washington Field Office. Those are the FBI agents who are assigned to work criminal cases in D.C. That's separate and apart from the Hoover Building FBI headquarters. And listen, they worked well together, but, you know, MPD dealt with local crime and the feds, the FBI, dealt with federal crime. So what kind of things are the FBI special agents investigating right now? They're investigating interstate kidnapping. They're investigating white-collar fraud and nationwide criminal fraud schemes.
Yeah, drug distribution, shit
they're
like
investigating terrorism. They're investigating child sex trafficking. And what has Donald Trump done? He said, I'm taking 120. I don't know what percentage of the FBI agents assigned to the Washington Field Office that represents, but it's a lot. 120 of them. Out of those investigations that I just described, I'm going to put them on the street as patrol officers, as if they were, you know, MPD street patrol officers. Now, Michael, that will result in multiple things, and they're all bad. One, it actually takes a certain amount of experience and expertise to patrol the streets well, lawfully, and constitutionally. Take it from somebody who prosecuted the arrests made by patrol officers for decades in D.C. You know, you say a couple of the wrong words or you neglect to say a couple of the things you should have said during the course of a stop, of an arrest, of a custodial interrogation. Guess what? You've now squirreled the prosecution. And I can't even hold those folk accountable. Not that the FBI agents aren't smart, accomplished law enforcement professionals, but they're not street cops. Right. So they shouldn't be taken away from their federal assignments, put on the streets. You're endangering everybody. And, you know, you're now commingling the federal agents' work with the MPD officers' work. It's a recipe for disaster. He's actually endangering the people of Washington, D.C., as much as he is endangering the officers that he's having do things that they're not equipped or experienced or trained to do. But that's the goal. He wants to demoralize the FBI, drive agents out, because you think you're gonna want to go from working your terrorism investigation to being a patrol cop on the streets of D.C. Are you going to leave the FBI for greener pastures? Isn't that perhaps what Donald Trump wants? Get rid of all the good agents, get rid of all the good DOJ attorneys, get rid of all the good MPD officers and detectives. And what do you got left? A Gestapo who are beholden to Donald Trump. Isn't that part of the goal here?
Well, all I know is anytime I've ever had to deal with our CPOP guy, our community police officer on patrol, the guy knows the area better than anybody I've ever met. In fact, he knows all the people. I suspect it's the same exact thing there in D.C. And you're right, Glenn. They're putting everybody into into harm's way over what? Big balls getting allegedly carjacked or getting smacked around. Maybe he mouthed off to the wrong person. Shit happens all the time, whether it's here in New York, DC, New Jersey, Staten Island, Brooklyn. It happens everywhere. You say the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time. Okay, a fight breaks out, but you don't move in the entire, FBI, and these federal agents to take over a police force. It's crazy. Hey, everyone. First of all, thanks for watching. We're going to be posting daily episodes with reactions and talking about politics. We'll be talking about everything, in fact. So please like and subscribe. Join us on this journey.